Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Our buddy, Zvonimir Ivisic. I do want to talk about Big Z. Okay. So listen, this one came on Monday afternoon. It was both not very surprising, but a little bit surprising, but you feel bad, but you don't feel bad. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Big Z, we've weirdly talked about so much on this show. You know, the commitment to Kentucky in August of 2023 goes to Kentucky. We know about the eligibility process. He then was the first player at Kentucky to decommit or enter the portal after John Calipari left. And he will forever go down as the first commitment for John Calipari at Arkansas. And so Big Z obviously has had trust in John Calipari, belief in John Calipari. He follows him to Arkansas. But on Monday, he does enter the portal. And I'll just be totally transparent. Not really all that surprised. By the way, as you can see, make sure to follow our CBB transfers account on Twitter and Instagram. We're talking transfers wall to wall on those pages, okay? So look, with Big Z, let me say this. I think two things in life can be true, okay? I think there's a possibility Arkansas does not get to the NCAA tournament if it isn't for Big Z. You know, Arkansas season really turned in the game at Rupp Arena. By the way, Big Z early in the season kind of took on this weird role. Jonas Aidoo's hurt. Trevin Brazil got hurt for a while. Big Z's kind of playing point center. He's shooting, he's scoring, he's doing this, he's doing that. But really, you know, you could argue that Arkansas's best games or best run was when Big Z played his best basketball. You go back to the game at Rupp Arena, 14 points in that game at Rupp Arena, his personal return game alongside John Calipari, 14 points, 4 of 7 from 3. You go down the list, 27 points, 5 threes against Alabama, 25 points in a win over LSU, 20 points in that big win over Missouri that I think everybody really led everybody to believe, like, dude, Arkansas is really turning a corner here. By the way, late in the season, after that Missouri game, 18-point win against Texas in overtime, 14 points in the win at Vandy that I think really, to me, basically officially clinched an NCAA tournament bid for Arkansas. So he was unbelievable. But what was also true is two things. One, he gets hurt in the SEC tournament. And I'll just be transparent. Like, if he doesn't get hurt, I don't know if he's in the portal. I really don't. But what happened was he gets hurt. He's not really playable. You feel bad because of the role that he plays. Jonas Aidoo steps up. Trevin Brazil steps up. And then when you tried to play him with that injury, he was basically unplayable. And I forget if it was a wrist or a hand or whatever. It was something in this part of the body that if you're watching on YouTube, okay? But, you know, listen, he was basically unplayable. And so I think John Calipari, after he assessed that game against Texas Tech, after he assessed how the season ended, after he assessed that basically Big Z was essentially unplayable against St. John's and Texas Tech, and in those games, he really struggled, and in those games, Arkansas really struggled to rebound, Coach Cal was just like, look, I love having a 7'2" guy that can shoot threes, but I need a guy that can get some boards when we need them late. And so you go back to that loss against Texas Tech, you're out-rebounded by 12. You go back to that loss against Texas Tech in which not only are you out-rebounded by 12, but let's also look at the fact that in that game, you gave up, 22 offensive rebounds. I'm not saying Big Z's the fall guy, but I'm saying you could have used a little bit more from that spot. And so because of it, listen, I think whenever you lose in the manner that Arkansas did, you're going to evaluate what went wrong. And I think they just decided, you know what, we need a little bit more physicality down low. So he enters the portal. You feel bad. You wish that things could have gone a little bit differently. But now Big Z is in the portal. And I'll tell you this, he is still a fascinating prospect. We talked about it a little bit with a Adi Mara. I think he's different than a Adi Mara for sure. Better shooter, more skilled than a Adi Mara. Adi Mara is a better defensive player. But I think, if Big Z stays in college and he finds the right team, I think he could absolutely thrive. The team that I think should give him a call is a team that tried to give him a call, tried to get a meeting with him this time last year when he entered the portal. I think Mark Pope in Kentucky should try to figure some things out. Now, listen, I know they're in on other big guys. Again, for people just joining us, we are recording on whatever today is, Tuesday at about 5 p.m. Eastern time. This stuff is always subject to change. We know Kentucky's in deep with Magoon-Gwath. We know that Merez Johnson has them in their final list. So the point I'm trying to make is Kentucky may be filled in the front court by the time, you listen to this. But my counter to that, I think he would actually thrive in Coach Pope's system. It's funny. I remember I went back probably about 6-8 weeks ago. I was just listening to some of the stuff that I said when Mark Pope took the job. And the first thing I said was Big Z is the perfect player for Mark Pope's system. And so it becomes interesting because if you go back to when Arkansas played Kentucky this year at Rupp Arena, Mark Pope was asked about Big Z. Do you remember what he said? Mark Pope said, I tried to call him. I think I liked him more than he liked me. This is the direct quote. Well, I did get a chance to talk to him a couple times. Clearly, I liked him a lot more than he liked me. Mark Pope said at the press conference prior to the Kentucky game at Rupp Arena earlier this year. So if I'm Mark Pope, I probably give him a call. We'll see what happens in the front court. We'll see if there's interest. By the way, I think Kentucky fans, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Mark Pope was asked about it on his call-in radio show, and Tom Leach, the play-by-play voice of Kentucky, had to be like, yeah, he can't talk about players that aren't on the team, aren't committed, aren't signed. And so, Mark Pope had to do kind of a quick wink and a nod on that one. We'll see if Big Z becomes an interest there, but I think the fit is there. I think the fit is there. If you're going to play 5 out, he's perfect. He's kind of a perfect complement to Brandon Garrison, who you already have. And he does he does provide a defensive presence. I just don't know if it's, quite the defensive presence that you're looking for. But again, Brandon Garrison's already there. If it's not Kentucky, obviously there's buzz. Could he team up with his brother, not former brother, current brother, Tomislav Ivisic, who of course plays at Illinois. Illinois is going through some interesting stuff on their end. A lot of guys are kind of moving there, but obviously there's a spot in the front court that is available with Merez Johnson deciding to transfer. And so I don't know if Illinois makes sense, but you would think that would be a factor. Tomislav Ivisic, by the way, was at Arkansas's NCAA tournament loss in San Francisco to Texas Tech. So I'll be curious to see, could a Kentucky reunion be possible? Does Illinois make sense? And then if not, I still think he becomes a very coveted player. There's proof of concept now, because the thing with Big Z when he entered the portal a year ago, it was all kind of just that one game against Georgia in his debut, and then he doesn't really play, and then he's hurt, and then he's sick, and then he's this, and then he's that. And he never really recaptured that after that first game against Georgia when he started at Kentucky. Well, now we have a full season where it's like, that dude can score in the SEC. That dude can get buckets. No, he's not going to be a guy that rips down 18 boards per game. He's not Dennis Rodman Jr., but can he be productive for a good team and a good program and a good system and a good league? Yeah, he can. So we'll see what happens next with Big Z. I think he's going to be as fascinating of a recruit as anybody, but Big Z officially in the portal, disappointing that it had to end that way at Arkansas. I'm not speaking for Arkansas fans. I think you've got to give him credit for what he did. I think you also have to understand why he needs a little bit more bulk on the inside, and we'll see if he gets it soon. Again, these portal segments are always subject to change. That's why you need to be following CBB Transfers on Twitter, because we're getting you portal news all the time.